Jimmy Butler, he's a very interesting player to me.
He's like, oh shoot, I don't know where to go with the ball because I haven't been able to think.
It was a great series. Game 4 was one of the best games I've ever watched in my entire life. Now LeBron's a 4-time champion, and Anthony Davis gets his first.
It's unacceptable. So happy when the Astros lost because it would definitely be a 2020 thing.
Yeah, I was impressed by their game. Braden Point, Andre Palat, Nikita Kucherov, that was the best line in the playoffs, no doubt.
Stay undefeated when they face the mighty Cowboys with Garrett Gilbert.
Hey everyone, I'm Jared Sandler, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back. We are talking about the USFL. It's a USFL Opinions of the Week. And we're going to talk about the USFL College Draft, first ever draft. We'll explain it. And I am Kevin, and I am joined by the man with the sports opinions and a sports podcast, Austin.
We're back with it even more confusing because I feel like this is one of the hardest things we've done to talk about because we've never really seen it. The ABA, NBA thing wasn't there when we were born. And even when they had the draft last year, that draft was during the year they were just drafting players that didn't make the NFL because it was post in NFL draft, so it made more sense who they were actually drafting. But now it is anyone, and it's before the NFL draft, which I don't necessarily agree with. But what are your thoughts on it?
I understand it, and I think reading more about it, I like it because if 5 years down the road, if the USFL is successful, then this will be how they get their players. But it's just like starting it up, which I think is difficult. But the thing is, it looks like they talked to Daryl Johnson and who's the executive vice president of football operations, and Jim Prop, the director of player administration of the USFL. And they said they're aiming for guys that probably won't get drafted in the NFL. So they would be likely to play for the USFL, but they said there are things. Some people could be drafted, and then.
But you have to assume that like the number one pick has a good chance of at least getting an undrafted offer to play for the NFL.
That's true. So I think so that could happen, but they could still opt for the USFL. We'll have to see, because. So I believe that's goal, and they're trying to get players just to add. But I think they still have a lot of rosters full. This is just adding to it, and it looks like the USFL also have a 3 quarterback rule. But then I just saw something talks about the last year 69 players were invited to NFL training camps, and then Kevontae Turpin, of course, made the Pro Bowl. And it looks like so it looks like that's kind of the goal. Is like they can view the USFL as a launching point, because that's what it did for Turpin. But that's all I got. I'm very intrigued to see what happens because they've definitely been marketing the USFL more in the second season. And did you see that season tickets thing I sent you?
For $25?
Yeah, $25 season tickets.
Yeah, that is not much.
Not much. Wish it was closer here. I might sign.
Well, I mean, there is the one in Arlington, but
yeah. So I'm. Oh wait, they added Arlington, or is that XFL?
Oh yeah, that's right. That's XFL. Man, it's gonna be tough getting them.
Yeah. Because I remember Arlington had one. It was like the Renegades, and then, or is it still the Renegades?
Yeah.
Okay, but I know with the first time at USFL, they kind of aimed at drafting players and convincing them to sign before the NFL draft, it doesn't seem like the USFL draft is trying to compete with the NFL draft. It's more as like
Well, I don't think you can. That's
well, yeah,
they would if they could, they would.
I agree, and maybe that could happen. But I remember it was Steve Young. It seemed like the USFL just paid a lot more people, and then that kind of led to their downfall. Like they just had such a bad issue with their money problems and other reasons. So now they're trying to slowly build this, but let's just get into the draft. There are some interesting picks, especially. Do you follow Des Bryant on Twitter?
I do not.
It's a fun Twitter follow. He mentioned he is a sleeper in the draft for the NFL, but he was actually drafted in the top 5 picks in the USFL draft. So we'll get to that when that pick comes up. But first overall was to the Michigan Panthers, Jarrett Horst, who was at Michigan State. He started 15 total games for Michigan State after transferring from Arkansas State, and he was a Big Ten honorable mention. So Michigan going with a home state guy, but to me that's a big risk because I would be shocked if Horst didn't get drafted by an NFL team.
You said what? That you would think that he would be?
Yeah, since he was an all Big Ten honorable mention.
Yeah, that's kind of what my problem was with the draft. Is I saw this O lineman be drafted first, and then I checked him out. And I'm like, this guy looks legit. Like I don't necessarily know if he chooses. And do these contracts have opt out for
I'm
NFL
not
opt out?
sure.
Like
They
if you start
could.
playing really really well, could you opt out or no? I guess the season ends before the NFL season begins, so like the Turpin deal.
Yeah.
Okay, I kind of get it now. I think I get it. Is it all
Yeah.
1 year deals though? Is there? That's kind of what I was saying. Like you can't
They
sign
might
that
they might give an option to be like, hey, you can go to the NFL.
because I think that's the only way this league stays alive.
Yeah, I agree. You can't compete with the NFL. They've had a head start, so
Just a little bit.
yeah. So I think they kind of view it as like, hey, you can come here. And then some guys may choose to stay in the XFL. We don't know. Yeah, so
USFL.
I get your point with the Horst thing, but Michigan may be like, hey, if we can get this guy, he'd be great for us.
That's true. Move on to the next pick.
And then number 2, which Lindsey Scott Jr., quarterback from Incarnate Word. I started all 7 games at quarterback in the 2021 FCS spring season. Counted for 2,241 yards, threw for 1,684, 18 touchdowns this year. I think this guy has a pretty good chance of going to the Maulers.
Yeah, I'm trying to find his stats right now, but being from Incarnate Word makes it more likely. However, he played at LSU before. He's older because he's 24 right now, so he's not necessarily young. But I like the pick. I think picking a QB at the beginning is always a positive thing. But here, I'm finally at his stats, and it's just not loading. Amazing.
That's another thing, if I can interrupt. They mentioned that they wanted at least 3 years in college or the college eligibility is done. Or they have no remaining college eligibility for the people in that draft pool.
Okay. Whoa. Did you see what his stats were this year?
Well, it said like 2,241 yards of total offense, and then
No, in 2020,
touchdowns.
Kevin,
Mhm.
in 2022, he had 4,657 yards, 60 touchdown passes, 60, 8 interceptions, 60 touchdown passes, 6-0.
Huh. That's interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure what these stats are from 2021.
Yeah, his 2020 stats, he had 60 touchdown passes, 8 interceptions.
Wait, 2020 or 2022?
2022.
Okay, I thought I heard 20.
He also had 11 rushing touchdowns and 712 yards. He had 71 touchdown plus rushing touchdowns.
Wow. So yeah, those are quite a list of stats, and I think he has a pretty good draft, a pretty good chance of starting for the Maulers because they seem like a team that needs a lot of help.
Yeah, I agree. But the thing is really, I think it'd be good for him to play, mainly because it's a tryout for the
Yeah.
NFL.
Mm-hmm.
If he's really that guy, he can go for 60 and 8 interceptions. Even if he shows back in potential, I think he'll gain NFL interest.
Yeah, it's true. And now we get to third pick, which this is the guy Dez was like, he's going to be great. Or he has the chance to be great. And that's Chase Bryce, the quarterback from Appalachian State. Played at Clemson and Duke, and then his final 2 seasons at Appalachian State set the school single season passing record with 3,337 yards. And then he upset Texas A&M. That's why I remember Appalachian State.
What's his name again?
Chase Bryce. I believe he filled in when like Trevor Lawrence got some concussion, or he got hurt in like the Boston College game a few years ago.
Okay. Interesting. Let me check his stats.
I'm also
27 and 6, pretty efficient. He's pretty good. A better school than Incarnate Word he was playing for, obviously. But this is the guy that Des Bryant said was a sleeper.
Yeah, he said he has a chance to be really good.
Okay, well, if he says it, you know something.
I'm trying to see what his high school ranking was. He committed to Clemson in 2015. Because like I remember he was pretty close. He's from Georgia. What year? He signed in 2015. Isn't that the similar year to Lawrence and Fields, or is that a year after?
Say the year again.
He enrolled in 2017.
I think it's before Trevor.
Okay.
I think that is before him. I don't know, though.
Because I know okay, yeah, you're right. It's before Trevor. So so that's the same year. So he's a year before the stacked Georgia class or Georgia high school. Because Fields is from Georgia, Lawrence, and then also Bryce. So I'm intrigued. Because I don't know if someone takes him in the final rounds, but Houston, if it works out and he lives up to what Des thinks and what other guys thought, like Clemson and Duke, I'm very intrigued.
Yeah, that he's another one of the older guys, and I feel like those older guys are the ones that are probably going to go to the USFL because they have to prove themselves sooner than a guy like Jordan Love, for example, who just sat behind Aaron Rodgers for 3 years. I don't know if these guys really have the facilities for that, but I like that these guys are at least going to get a chance to see their name called at a draft. I feel like that's still cool to hear.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think it's a really good point about their age. Now we go with number 4, the Memphis Showboats. Mason Brooks from Mississippi, another tackle, and He was a first-team All-Conference USA selection in 2021 and played all 13 games for Ole Miss in 2022. This is another guy. I think he would be a late-round pick in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, offensive tackles, it's really hard to take them in a draft like this because there's guys like, oh, I didn't think he was going to get taken. But again, a team could just have an affinity for that player, and offensive line is so important for the state of football that, I mean, taking guys this high in the draft, yes, but also NFL, people can pick them up because they need them.
Yeah, and now we go to number 5, Tyler Scott, wide receiver from Cincinnati. Apparently, he set career highs in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns. Had over 100 yards receiving in 4 different games. I'm not sure about him too because he's from Cincinnati, but and like Cincinnati is a big school, so I'm not sure.
He had 899 yards, 9 touchdowns this year. Yes, he had some big games, but he also had some not great games. But it will be interesting to see. I mean, he had 185 yards against Indiana, and 3 touchdowns. So again, wide receiver is another spot where anyone can really get picked up. But again, if you don't think your name's going to get called in the draft, or if it doesn't get called in the draft, go to the USFL, in my opinion, because it's going to end before the NFL season starts. And then, like Turpin played a lot of football, USFL, and he was playing college before that, right?
I'm not sure. How old is Turpin? I thought he's pretty old, like maybe 26.
Let me check. He is 26.
He's 26.
But he played. Oh yeah, he was out of college for a while.
I thought he was in with like the CFL or something.
Or even then, he did play a lot of football. But yeah, I mean, for anyone that played, I mean, it's a lot of football. But I think it's the best way to raise your stock with an NFL team and maybe get a job.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. So that's the top 5 picks. We'll see what else happens with the draft. This would definitely be something to see. What happens if someone doesn't get drafted in the NFL draft? Can the USFL sign him as an undrafted free agent? But that would be during the season, so not really sure. And anything else before we end this episode?
No, I'm intrigued to see how many players end up getting drafted by the NFL. I don't think it's going to be a lot, but I do think some will. I would say about. Well, let's make a prediction here because I want to do a prediction. We haven't done a prediction all day. How many players do you think get signed to an NFL team that were drafted in this draft? So they could be undrafted and maybe play an entire season with the USFL. But how many people from this draft, USFL draft, will be NFL players? I'll say 4.
Oh, I'm gonna go 10. I think
10.
'cause there's
Wow.
5 rounds. I think.
But there's only
guy-
8 teams. That's only 40 picks.
Well, it says 80 players were selected.
Wait, there's 8 teams in 5 rounds.
Oh, is it 5? Okay, this says 10.
Oh, were there 10 rounds?
That's what I thought.
Okay, well then 80. Still, I don't think it's going to be. But I mean, if you're in the 10th round of the USFL draft, I mean, again, you could prove yourself. I'm going to stick with my 4, though.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to stick with my 10. We'll see. Because I just view some guys as flyers. We'll see, though. And that's all we got. Thank you for listening. Check our socials for updates on episodes. Thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.